welcome to HyzerMedia's coverage of the finale of the Warwick Disc Golf Championships from Warwick, New York. This tournament is run by Skylands Disc Golf Club, and the coverage is brought to you in part by our Patreon family. I'm Dave Oster, here to bring you the conclusion to this 4-round A-tier tournament held in Warwick, New York. Historic tournament, only has had 2 different winners in the last 12 years, one of which is on this card, Steve Brinster, joined by Kyle Moriarty, Scott Conway, and our current leader, Harry Chace. We'll see how this plays out, starting off with hole 10, par 3, 337 feet. Big spike hyzer around the right side is the most common play. There is a forehand line, more likely taken from the short tee, but some of these guys could be coming through this gap we're looking at here. So Steve Brinster starting us off. Looking like he's lining up that backhand. Big spike hyzer. Takes it nice and wide. It does drop quite a bit in elevation. So looking to just get it out there and let the hill and the disc do the work. And he does a fantastic job at that. 400 feet away, gets it to 10 feet. Maybe 12. Can't ask for much better results than that. Scott trying to replicate those results. A little straighter of a line, letting the wind maybe take it. And real high, falling down into the center island of bushes that they're trying to avoid. So we'll have to see exactly what he has as a look on his second shot. Harry taking it a bit wider, but needs to get around, and also getting caught up in that second set of trees in the center island. So Steve got around, Harry and Scott not able to. We'll see if Kyle can learn from their mistakes, and he is not able to. Catches that dead tree right at the corner. So 3 of these guys are going to be trying to manufacture something, as we see Kyle throwing a forehand roller to get out of there, and goes past the basket, but he'll be on the green somewhere. Scott pretty close, actually going for it with a little forehand, but with the downhill it's going to filter away from the basket. And now Harry actually had his disc stuck way up in the tree, able to get it down, but now he'll be throwing from here. And nobody's really that close yet, other than, of course, Steve, who had the great drive. And Kyle and Scott both trying to save their pars and not able to. So they'll most likely be taking their bogey, as Steve is essentially tapping in his birdie. So definitely windy today. This hole in particular, trying to play the big giant spike hyzer downhill, certainly coming into play. As we see 3 of the competitors likely taking bogeys. And Steve with the only birdie, so a 2-stroke swing. Which brings Steve right back into it. And you really can't ever count him out with all the experience that he has and success of his career, so quite a few holes still left to go. We'll see what happens. Starting off with this beautiful hole 11, par 3, 304 feet. Really can't say I've seen too many more picturesque holes here. Crossing this out-of-bounds creek once at least, maybe 2 or even 3 times depending on the line. And kind of a risk-reward type thing. Looked like Steve playing more of the safe line, but catching that bush on the left side. Kind of getting through it, though. So he'll probably have a fairly clean approach. Scott looked like he was going for the drifting left to right shot. Which is a little bit more aggressive because it's drifting towards the creek. But hopefully with the backhand it'll fade back. But he catches that bush as well. And Harry, and with the much more aggressive forehand line, but just too low, winding up right on the bank of the creek. And Kyle actually getting through a little bit, but catching something and falling down. So nobody really with a great shot, but at least everybody's safe over the creek. Taking the wide line. Scott getting caught up again, so he'll still have a long look to get up and down. Harry's lining up for seemingly this very tight gap. Oh, going even wider up and over the creek, but pays off. That was the risk-reward kind of thing I was talking about, either from the tee or you can see there on Harry's upshot. There's obviously more space where there's no trees, meaning the creek. But if you don't get up that steep bank, obviously it's going to roll right down into the water. Oh, and a good run by Kyle. Steve also giving it a pretty good bid. And now this is Scott to save his par. Oh, right off the rim. Looked like that nose up even had the middle of the disc hit it, but just not able to slide in there. So, the rest of these guys most likely taking their pars. And Scott dropping a stroke that'll actually just be in Harry's favor because it'll give him one more stroke over the second place competitor. Hole 11 was playing about a tenth of a stroke over par today, so right around what this card played. As we move over to hole 12, par 3, 324 feet, pretty much a stall hyzer shot backhand, trying to get up in the air and have it die down into this pretty tight approach to your green. A lot of hanging branches on the left and the right side, so distance really not an issue for these guys, but the shot shape and precision will be the challenge here. Steve going with a standstill. Nice height, needs to start coming back. And just about makes the corner. He'll be under that tree. Maybe a 35, 40 footer. Harry using the full width of that fairway, a little less height. And landing right in the middle, but short. So he'll have a longer but unobstructed putt compared to Steve. Oh, and this is inside. That needs some help. Does not look like he got it. So Kyle will either be right on the edge there or maybe in the woods a little bit. And on the inside, that's going to be a difficult second shot.
Oh yeah, water.
And a very wide, catching some tree limbs, but kind of getting up there. Takes a counter skip that he didn't need. So he'll also have an obstructed second shot. And Kyle almost got it perfectly, but that steep angle, just hard not to have the disc land and roll away like it just did. Harry for his birdie. Right height, just a little bit to the right. So we see Scott using those long limbs to get out and around, but still a low ceiling. Reach out. And giving it the height. If he had given a little more power, he was probably thinking maybe a half bid. And Steve probably with the best shot. Still not a easy putt at all, if you could call it a putt, and off the band, inches from the only birdie on the card. And just low. That was Kyle to save his par. Difficult hole for sure. Playing a full quarter stroke over par for this round, so losing a stroke to the card, but not really to the field. And still plenty of golf left, so moving on to hole 13, much more open as long as you get out in the gap. Par 4, 447 feet. You don't have to go between these two pine trees, but a lot of players will use that as their aiming point, getting up the hill. Second shot's just approaching the blue basket. Road and beyond is out of bounds. So this tee pad being this far back really creates the challenge if you want to give it as much as you have to get as far up the hill as you can. But obviously, the harder you throw something, less accurate you are, and you really want to make the gap, which Harry and Steve both do. Steve going a little bit to the left side, which is, again, just fine. Your approach can go in between or either side of the pine trees, so. And Scott throwing a beautiful shot, getting all the way up to the shade of the tree. And what you really want to do is maybe be able to see at least the top of the band on your second shot to give you a better depth perception. As Kyle using the full width of that gap and even catching some trees, but he's right out there with the rest of these guys. Steve on the left side. You can see how steep that is. He's just barely getting over the crest of that hill, but then coming up and throwing a beautiful shot. Kyle throwing much higher shot, hitting the cage. Wow, almost throwing it in from a blind shot. You see Harry and most likely Scott able to see the basket. So a bit of an advantage there, although Steve and Kyle are parked anyway. And Harry's actually further away, even though he could see it. Let's see if Scott can make the correction. Little small flex line. And yeah, he's right around the same distance as the rest of these guys. So Harry with the longest putt, even though he could see the basket. Just getting over the rim. This was playing as one of the only holes under par for the day at .38 under par. So looking like we're going to get our first star frame of the round from this lead card. Not surprised, like I said in the front nine, this was a 4-round tournament in 90 to 95 plus degree heat, high humidity. The only saving grace for the weather really was this breeze. So fatigue, definitely a factor. And of course the longest of the 4 layouts. So you move over to hole 14. Par 4, 737 feet, throwing across the road. If somehow you land in there on your first shot, it is out of bounds, but more likely you're trying to get out far down this hill, near the gap into the wood line, setting yourself up for an approach shot that goes to or over this creek. Drone footage taken at a different time of the year, but the water is still there, just much lower than we see here. We'll see once we get close, but approaching this beautiful peninsula, almost playing as an island green basket, just under and beyond that last tree. Gonna miss. So Steve needs this to keep turning. That's going towards it. Not great place. Looks like he reached the wood line, but 70, 80 feet left of the gap, so he'll most likely have to play through the woods. And this is also pretty wide by Harry, but swings back. He should be able to throw a forehand through there. Steve's going to probably have to be playing through the woods from where he went. That was maybe expecting the wind to flip that more, as we see Scott's does get flipped. Catches a little limb and stays on this side of the rock wall, which is fortunate for him. Difficult being on the other side. And Kyle throwing a higher forehand than Harry did, but landing just about the same spot. So these big far drives obviously get affected more by the wind. You can kind of hear it howling here. Scott happy to kind of just pitch through the gap, not trying to throw any hero shots, trying to approach the green from where he was. Smart play. And Harry not getting it through the gap, actually going with the backhand, taking a bit too wide. Kyle with the forehand approach and getting it around the tree, and it sat. You heard him calling for it. Left side of that tree, a beautiful flex forehand. That was not the most easy shot you've ever seen. Around the trees, through the gap, over the creek. Props to Kyle, great shot. Steve, we saw just doing whatever he could to get back out onto the fairway. And Harry with a good, unfortunately, third shot to get under the basket after the errant second shot hitting the trees. And good disc choice for that shot shape, getting around the tree, letting the disc stability come back and fall short of the creek on the far side. And this is very wide, but also good stability, and that'll be just fine. So Kyle, the only one on the green in 2. And takes advantage. Getting at least a stroke on the card. The rest of these guys are sitting there, lying 3. And good putt by Steve as well. Scott and Harry are much closer, so it's looking like we're playing this hole at 3 pars and 1 birdie, which is right around what the field was playing. As we move over to hole 15, par 4, 633 feet. Another gap you got to hit over the rock wall, of course, out into this open field. Players trying to throw something straight, landing at least even with this wood line. Probably trying to have something finish and get closer to this gap on the left that they're aiming for to access the second part of the fairway, where you need to throw another tight shot, picking your line through these grouping of trees, and then up to the green over another rock wall to access the basket. Certainly not an easy hole, a lot that it's asking for, and the scores show it. See what these guys do, but the field was playing quite a bit over par, so Kyle with a pretty good shot, setting himself up for good position for a second throw. Oh, and a little inside. Looked like Steve might have made it out into the field, or maybe right along that rock wall. We'll have to see. Harry also taking it inside, but gets through. Kind of kicks off a couple things and makes it up there near the entrance to Wolf Woods, the other course on this property, on this side of the street. There's also Oasis across the street, so if you're watching and you've never been here, this is definitely a destination location. Warwick being probably the most tournament played style course of the three of them, but if you want to come play 3 courses all within the same park, this is a place to go. As we see, Steve is on top of this rock wall right along that tree. Very awkward stance, throwing the backhand roller. He sounds unhappy with this, but honestly, from where he was, that was a great second shot to get him back into position to save the par. Honestly, not getting out of that gap, birdie is pretty much out of the question. Par, maybe even difficult, but he was able to get himself probably back in a position for that, depending on his second throw. Harry also not in a great position. Rocks and trees all in his way. And you can see all he can really do is pitch up and doesn't actually make it through that gap. He'll be right on the edge as he caught that big tree we're looking at. Kyle in the best position of everybody gets a skip off the grass and just about up that rock wall. That was a very fortunate skip, so he'll actually have a birdie look at it. And Harry also skipping it off the wall. That will be 10 to 12 footer just for his par though. Steve making it just up to the green on the short side of the rock wall, but it does angle towards the basket. The farther away you get near where he is, so he'll have a shorter putt than we just saw. Scott have a little stump maybe in his way. Stump wasn't in his way, but he just left a little low. See the wind picking up again. We're right on the edge of the field where holes 17 and 18 are. But Kyle able to battle that wind, put it in for the only birdie on the card again. 2 in a row. So he is now in a tie for second place with Scott. And only a few strokes back from Harry. And I mentioned the heat a couple times already. We unfortunately had an equipment malfunction. One of our cameras went down. So we're going to finish out these last 3 holes with 1 camera. I do apologize. We're going to have some, we'll call them unique angles. We're going to get you the rest of this round. Let you know how it goes, what these players did. Scores will be up there. But if you see some strange angles, that is just why. Hole 16, starting off with Kyle, of course, getting the birdie in the last 2 holes, throwing a roller up and over the hill. And curling to the right, out towards the open gap. This is a 400-foot par 3. It is reachable because it's downhill, but players having to get up and over that rock wall, or just to it, can also give you a 30 to 40-foot putt if you make it all the way there. And Harry also throwing the roller just over the crest. We couldn't see right where it landed, but I can let you know it was right side, similar to where Kyle's landed, just a bit shorter. 3rd roller in a row. Scott's is heading down the hill and heading right about to the same place, further left down the hill than the first 2. So he'll actually have a long putt at the basket. And Steve catching the short tee pad and kicking him further left. So he is going to be further down the hill to the left, kind of near to the left of even the silver basket. So this is where he is, almost near the entrance of 18's fairway. and giving it a little bit of a bid and going past. So he'll have maybe a little bit of a comeback putt. Harry low ceiling, also giving it a bid, a little low right side, but giving it a shot. Kyle also just making sure he gets it over that rock wall. And here we see Scott further left, but close to the rock wall. So it looks like he's definitely going to give this one a bid. And nails the putt. Low right side, over the rock wall, through a gap of trees. That was easily 40, 45, maybe close to 50 feet. Great shot by Scott. Oh, high right, barely catching the chains, but that will count. Kyle makes his par putt. Harry is gonna tap his in as well. So Kyle, one stroke behind Scott, who is now only a few strokes behind Harry with 2 holes to go, starting off with this long par 4, 747 feet from the long tee. Players just trying to get out as far as they can, preferably to the right side of this fairway, set themselves up for an approach to the blue basket, which is up the hill in the woods. The rock wall beyond is also out of bounds, so if you turn something over, you can land in the out of bounds and get a penalty stroke. So these guys will obviously be trying to avoid that while getting as much distance as they can. It's also blind from the tee, having to throw up and over this hill, but then it drops down into a bit of a valley where these guys are going to land. Really far shots will be up the next little rolling hill where the short pad 418 is. Kyle giving this a pretty good throw, skipping up just about the top of that hill, just talking about. Giving him a pretty straight, easy approach for his second shot. And I mentioned in the front 9, if you hadn't seen, Harry was on our coverage last week at the Disc Golf Open of PA, and we saw that he has an arm on him, as he just demonstrated there. Great shot. Steve going with the roller. Grass looks like it's slowing it down pretty quickly, but it's trucking it along. And he's up at the top of that hill, right with everybody else. There was a little playful banter of who actually threw the furthest, and I'm not going to say who it was, but I will let you see who throws first. And great approach by Scott. He is under the basket for his birdie, which is exactly what he needs to do to put the pressure on Harry. Big, wide, swinging, almost nailing the chains for the eagle. Steve Brinster. Harry throwing straight shot. Very high and long. Definitely a bit of a misrelease there. Has the hill as a backstop, but threw it very high and too far. Oh, and this is turned over a bit. Okay, short enough. So all these guys will probably be within the circle. Harry and Kyle will have a bit more difficult putts than the other two. Oh. And low on the downhill putt for Harry. So that will likely result in another stroke for Scott, which is exactly what he needed if he's going to have any chance to catch him on hole 18. And hole 18 is a doozy, folks. If you haven't seen it, it's the par 5 out of bounds road, pretty much left side all the way around, and there is a lot to miss as we'll see coming up in the whole preview. Steve and Kyle with great holes as well, getting the birdies. And we will go over to the last hole of this tournament, the 72nd hole these players are playing, and the longest one that they will play the entire tournament. Hole 18, par 5, 900 feet. Off the tee, trying to set themselves up for an approach through this gap. From here, you're probably going to go left or right of this tree that we're passing on the right now. Roller's a good play because of the low ceiling, but brings in the risk for the out-of-bounds road on the left. Really trying to get to or through this last line of trees. Out-of-bounds road and parking lot still on the left. Probably another 250 to 300 feet to the basket. Out in the open. Can't quite see the bottom, so distance, seeing how far it is, can give you a bit of a tricky read, and we'll see how these players are able to tackle it. Starting off will be Scott Conway, just getting it out. Big skip, maybe a little past, actually no, that's perfect. Wasn't sure exactly how that lined up, but he will be right in line with that gap. Kyle looking like a similar line. Oh, and gets a even bigger skip. He is well past that opening, but all of those trees in that row will have gaps between them, and it looks like he landed near a pretty open one. Steve a little more inside. All of these guys getting these big skips. He's going to be further back and also not in line with that main opening. So Harry has a couple strokes to play with, so he doesn't have to get super aggressive, but obviously has the pressure of Scott behind him, and likely the best shot out of the group. Harry Chace does not care about the pressure. And roller, barely missing that, going towards the out of bounds. Oh, but it curls back in. Great, maybe lucky shot for Scott to stay in bounds. That is the risk of the roller, especially the backhand going up the hill. You need to get it on a cut angle. Oh, Steve not able to get through the gap. That is the difficulty with not lining up with this main gap. Actually, Harry wasn't either. Catching some limbs. Was over the out of bounds for a moment. We'll have to see where he actually ended up. He was not out of bounds. And Kyle actually with the cleanest look, even though he was not near the main opening. He definitely rolled over the out of bounds, but started to curl back. And he's out into the last open field, past that third row of trees. That was a tremendous roller. Had to have been 400 or 500 feet. So Steve, that's got a lot of cut. And that's going to be out of bounds, unfortunately. So a lot of those other guys got out of bounds and cut back in. Steve not able to have his disc do the same. So he's now throwing 5. Not able to see the ground near the basket. We'll have to see where that one ended up. But pretty good shot nonetheless. He was somewhere near the basket.
Come on, go in.
Oh! And Scott almost doing what he needed to do. Wow, Harry's shot was almost as far as Kyle's, giving him and Kyle very easy third shot approaches. And Kyle, so far, he almost could see the bottom of the basket, really making that an easy approach for him. Oh, on the right side, we saw many close to right side spit outs for Steve, but they stayed in. Unfortunately, his luck ran out on that last hole. Those right side ones aren't going to stay in forever. But Harry Chace, his first A-tier win, the winner of the Warwick Disc Golf Championships.
All right, taking down the tournament, Harry Chace. Congratulations.
There's only been 2 names on here in the last 12 years, and now there's going to be a third. And I'll tell you what, he played really well. Congrats, man. Appreciate it.
Yeah, I'll also echo what they said earlier. Big shout out to the club and the TD crew. We had snacks, we had water. This was one of the best ran events I've ever been to. It made just focusing on the game and playing really easy. So we can get a round of applause for them. Yeah, I got a lot of people to thank. The first for the guys, and Riley and Paul, not here, but I'm nervous, sorry. Riley and Dave and Vaughn and Ryan, it was great to stay with them. And I don't have a car right now, so they make me getting around kind of the only way. So appreciate them and all the gym class for helping me put in the work. And my sponsor, Just Mania Discs, been with them just for this year, but they support me in a great way. New plastic is great, and they fly even better. So check it out, and thanks again, everyone.
So congrats again to Harry Chace taking it down. Wound up 3 strokes ahead. Scott almost made the charge. Kyle and Steve, all great rounds. Rest of these guys, really a battle in this heat. 4 rounds. Look at these 1,000 rated rounds. Great top 10. Thank you for watching. Thank you for joining us on this epic A-tier, our first A-tier of this year. Hopefully it won't be the last. We are going to be filming many more tournaments, so hit that subscribe button so you can catch all the action. And until then, we'll see you in the next hole.